Hey everyone, it's Jasmine and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be explaining how I learned 7 languages, and this is kind of a follow-on video from my previous video where I showed you the languages that I'm speaking. But today I'm just going to be using English, so I'm going to explain how exactly I learned all these languages and whether I'm fluent or intermediate or just basic in them. And yeah, let's get started. Oh, and also I'm going to be giving you guys some tips to learn languages as well, whether you're learning just 1 or 2 or 3 at the same time. I hope that these tips will be able to help you guys, but first I'm going to explain how I learned these languages. So firstly, English, of course, it's my native language. I was born in Australia and grew up in Australia, hence I'm fluent in English. As for Chinese Mandarin, I actually lived in China for 2 years when I was young. I was 1 year old when I went, and I came back to Australia when I was 3. I was with my family, of course, but because I lived in China right at the time when I was beginning to learn how to speak, I learned Chinese, of course, and at the time I could actually speak the Sichuan dialect, but now I unfortunately can't speak the dialect anymore, but I can still understand it. And also at home I speak Chinese Mandarin with my grandparents and my mum sometimes, and also when I was in primary school and all throughout high school I went to Chinese school on the weekends, so it would be about a 3-hour class and we would just learn Chinese and the culture, and I did it as a subject in high school as well. As for Indonesian, I actually had to learn a language in high school. So in year 7 I learned Indonesian, and at the end of year 7 the students, or we all had to pick a language. We were learning 2 at the time actually. I was learning French and Indonesian, so I chose to continue Indonesian, and then throughout year 8 and year 9 I did Indonesian as a compulsory subject. And then at the end of year 9 I decided to just continue on with Indonesian because I liked it and it was a pretty easy subject for me, so I thought I could get away with that. And also in year 10 my school gave us the opportunity to go to Indonesia for a study tour, so I thought be a great time to go overseas as well, just to explore a bit of the culture over there, and perhaps going to Indonesia could improve my Indonesian as well. So yeah, and then I continued that all the way until year 12, so I learned Indonesian for 6 years at school, and I did have an Indonesian teacher as well. So as for Korean, I started to watch Korean dramas when I was about 14, turning 15, and from then on I just I fell in love with Korean dramas, and I learned so much from just watching. Right now, after about 4 years or so, I can watch a Korean drama and understand a decent amount of what they're saying without watching or reading the subtitles. And so I just learned Korean by myself at home. I never took any classes. I don't have any Korean friends. I don't know a lot of Koreans as well, but I still love the culture and I hope to make Korean friends as well. But yeah, just at home by myself using a lot of resources I could find, especially through online, and I learned Korean mainly through watching dramas. Oh, and at the moment I would say my level is about the intermediate mark. So as I mentioned before, I've also learned French, and I learned that because in year 7 all the students had to learn 2 languages at my school. So I chose French and Indonesian, as I said previously, but unfortunately I decided not to continue with French because it was just a lot harder than Indonesian. But I did learn quite a bit, although I've forgotten most of it now. But we learnt how to say my name, just introduction, counting. I still know how to count to 10, and kind of the basic expressions, but as I said, I've lost most of that now. But I think French is still a beautiful language, so if you're French, thumbs up to you. And as for Italian, in primary school I learned Italian throughout my schooling years. So from prep to grade 6 we did Italian, not too much of it, but we did do just basic expressions like French. So we learned how to count to 10, which I still remember. We learned how to introduce ourselves, the colours, what we like, foods and things like that. I'm currently not continuing Italian though, but I do think, like French, it is a beautiful language and I'd love to visit Italy one day, that's for sure. And finally, as for Polish, of course my dad is Polish, so I've been exposed to a bit of Polish as I grew up. My Polish grandparents talk to me in English, but when they have conversations I kind of learned a bit of Polish still, and I learned how to count to 10. My dad taught me a few things here and there, but he really wanted me to focus on Chinese Mandarin. But as I said in my previous video, I think, I would like to continue to learn Polish. It's just such an elegant language, and of course being Polish, it would be great to just know a bit more Polish as well, and I would love to visit Poland too, which hopefully can happen in the next few years or so. But yeah, so my Polish is very basic at the moment. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to some tips onto learning languages. Whether you're learning one or a few at the same time, these are my best tips for you guys. So firstly is just to be exposed as much as possible to the language you're learning. So if you think about it, you are fluent in your native language because you're exposed to it, right? It's in your environment. For example, I grew up in Australia and my native language is English because everywhere around me, everyone uses English, right? So if you want to become fluent in a specific language you're learning, expose yourself as much as possible. And of course, the best way would actually be to travel to the country where that language is used the most. But of course, that is not possible for everyone, and I can totally understand. So here are some other ways you can expose yourself more to a specific language. So for example, what you can do is watch a lot of TV dramas or shows in the language. I, for example, watch a lot of Korean dramas to practice my listening. As for speaking, you can make friends who are native in the language and perhaps don't speak your native language. And you can also write a journal in the language. So instead of writing a diary in your native language, practice your writing, and even if you make a mistake, that's okay because you will improve over time, and you can look back at what you first wrote and then you will be able to actually see how much you've improved. And as for reading, you can read magazines, read the newspaper in the language. I'm sure you can find lots of resources available. So you can go online, you can go to local supermarket, they may have the newspaper in the language, and yeah, as I said, the internet is limitless. So go on there, search as much as you can, you'll definitely be able to find some things to read in the language you're learning. So my second tip is to not give up. Of course, learning a language is not easy all the time, as with anything else you do. Whether you're trying to pick up another new skill or just doing something in life, it's never going to be just, straight up good things all the time. It's always going to be a roller coaster, and that's with learning a language as well. There will be things that are really easy and there'll be things that are quite hard and will be a challenge to try to learn. But don't give up, because if you're really passionate about becoming fluent in a language, you can do it. You will get past these challenges. If you give up, or maybe the passion isn't there, and unfortunately you just won't improve, which I don't like to be negative, so just don't give up and you will get there. One way to maybe perhaps motivate yourself is to record your current progress. So you can do that through making videos of yourself speaking, recording your voice, writing a diary entry as I said earlier, and then over time you can look back at the first things you recorded and wrote down, and then you'll be able to see how much you've improved. And then you may be motivated to learn even more and be less inclined to give up. So that's one way. So yeah, don't give up, you can do it, believe in yourself. Nothing's easy in life, but you can conquer these challenges. I believe in you. And another tip number 3, would be to take classes. I'm sure if you're living in a city, there are lots and plenty of classes that do languages, so you can find a Korean class, for example, if you're learning Korean. Of course, this may require you to pay some fees, but if you're really passionate about learning a language and you have the means to pay for some tutoring fees, well, of course, go take some classes. I think that will really help and benefit you. Okay, so those are all my tips and everything I have to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!